Hi everyone, this is Eagle News. I'm Ralph Coronel in Washington. It's Saturday, the 1st of October, 2022, here in the nation's capital. The week's recap begins now. Hurricane Ian is this week's top news. The gigantic storm first wreaked havoc on Cuba. Days later, Florida felt the grunt of the storm with high winds and a life-threatening storm surge. President Biden describes the impact that the storm has had on the lives of Americans.
The situation in Florida is far more devastating. We're just beginning to see the scale of that destruction. It's likely to rank among the worst of the nation's and the worst in the nation's history. You'll have all seen it on television, homes and property wiped out. It's going to take months, years to rebuild. And our hearts go out to all those folks whose lives have been absolutely devastated by this storm. America's heart is literally breaking, just watching people watch it on television. I just want the people of Florida to know, we see what you're going through and we're with you. We're going to do everything we can for you. I say to the rest of Americans, just imagine yourself in that situation. Water rising, walls collapsing, streets turned literally into rivers, charter boats on top of automobiles, watching the home and the community work so hard to establish, literally washed away. And folks across the country are now waiting to hear from parents and grandparents who live in Florida, just hoping and praying they're okay.
Although Ian has been downgraded to a Category 1 hurricane, it is still a major concern for those living in the Carolinas and Georgia. To update us on how residents and communities in Florida are dealing with Hurricane Ian's aftermath, here's Melissa Potes.
More than 24 hours after Hurricane Ian pummeled through central Florida as a tropical storm, communities continue to deal with the aftermath. According to Orlando City Mayor Buddy Dyer, Orlando experienced historic flooding with many areas reaching 14 inches above normal levels. Orlando Fire and Police Departments continue to assess flooding and have been completing residential rescues as needed. Orange County Public School officials began assessing OCPS schools and facilities for damage, with the goal of reopening all schools on Monday, October 3rd. In Osceola County, residents are encouraged to continue to shelter in place and to avoid venturing out on roadways unless necessary. Because of extreme flooding in low-lying and flood-prone areas, the city of Kissimmee has issued a mandatory curfew from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. until further notice. At this time, more than 1.8 million customers across the state remain without power. Orlando International Airport has resumed flight operations. However, passengers are encouraged to contact their specific airline before coming to the airport. While communities continue to clean up debris and damage from Hurricane Ian, President Biden approved Governor Ron DeSantis' request to grant a major disaster declaration for all 67 counties. This will provide a wide range of federal assistance programs for individuals, as well as funds for emergency and permanent work and public infrastructure. Melissa Potes, Orlando, Florida, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Anticipating Hurricane Ian's impact in South Carolina after it has devastated Florida state, the Pennsylvania Task Force 1 will be there to help in rescue operations. Miley Sambulan reports.
45 members and support personnel from Pennsylvania Task Force 1, or PATF-1, have been deployed to South Carolina to support response operations in the aftermath of Hurricane Ian. The two members of PATF-1 who were deployed to Puerto Rico ahead of Hurricane Fiona were reassigned to Florida in anticipation of Hurricane Ian. They are part of a federal incident support team that will work with Florida emergency management and response personnel to augment operations. According to the National Weather Service, at this time, Hurricane Ian is unlikely to bring significant storm conditions to Pennsylvania, although rain from the system could arrive across southern parts of the state over the weekend. Residents are encouraged to stay alert as forecasts can change as the system gets closer over the next few days. PATF-1 is one of 28 teams that are part of the National Urban Search and Rescue Response System. It is a federal resource that can quickly be mobilized to deploy to incidents anywhere in the country. The team is sponsored by the Philadelphia Fire Department. Myla Simbulan, Swarthmore, Pennsylvania, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
In other news, Ontario's Hydro One has sent storm responders to Nova Scotia after Hurricane Fiona leaves hundreds of thousands of households without power. Yolanda Espiras has the details.
In response to the devastating effect of Hurricane Fiona in Atlantic Canada this week, Ontario's Hydro One is sending staff and crew Tuesday to help restore power and electricity in affected areas. Hurricane Fiona brought heavy rainfall and severe winds, bringing much damage to the province of Nova Scotia. More than 400,000 households have lost power due to the storm. Ontario Premier Doug Ford and Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson have said that Ontario and Ottawa will be on standby and continue to provide further support to Nova Scotia when needed. The Government of Canada has also deployed the Canadian Armed Forces to help with rescue and recovery efforts. As of Tuesday, 300,000 households are still without power in the region. Reports say that Hurricane Fiona will cost about $300 million to $700 million in insured losses, making it as one of Nova Scotia's largest and most devastating natural disasters in the province's history. Yolanda Espiras, Eagle News, Toronto, Ontario.
Meanwhile, with vaccination disparities among populations mostly affected by monkeypox, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention opens applications for vaccine equity. It is meant to reach those that may find it difficult to access vaccinations against the disease. Rochelle Feria has the details.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, announces that the local, state, and territorial health departments, as well as tribal governments and local non-governmental organizations, can partner together and begin submitting requests to access monkeypox vaccine through the recently announced Monkeypox Vaccine Equity Pilot Program. The pilot program addresses vaccination disparities between populations mostly affected. It also intends to reach populations that may face barriers to monkeypox vaccination. This includes differences in language, location of vaccination sites, vaccine hesitancy, mistrust of government, lack of access to online scheduling technology, accessibility and disability issues, immigration status, and stigma. The CDC says the outbreak is affecting men who have sex with men at an unequal rate. The health agency says it has disproportionately affected Black and Hispanic communities and that distributing monkeypox vaccines in a way that addresses and reduces these disparities is the goal and priority of the program. Up to 50,000 doses of JYNNEOS vaccine have been allocated for the Monkeypox Vaccine Equity Pilot Program. Projects should prioritize groups. One is with risk factors that increase their chances of getting or spreading monkeypox. Number two is who are overrepresented among monkeypox cases and less likely to be vaccinated. And number three, whose barriers to vaccination may be addressed by the activities proposed. CDC Director Dr. Rochelle P. Walensky says this program will help make a difference. Local health departments and organizations interested in applying should contact their state or territorial health departments of tribal governments. For more information on details of the application, visit cdc.gov. Rochelle Feria, Washington, D.C., Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Now, several stories from Thomas Likeness, from a grandmother rescuing her grandkids from flooding caused by Ian, to AI fire helmets to help firefighters save more lives, to a shrinking population of Bulgaria and the threat faced by polar bears in Canada. These and more on this week's Correspondent at Large.
And now news and commentary from around the globe. In the aftermath of Hurricane Ian, there are many stories to tell. Let me tell you about one hero. She's a grandmother, 67-year-old Susan Clark of Fort Myers. This is what the neighborhood looked like. Her house flooded. Her daughter's house also flooded. There were 3 kids, her grandchildren, trapped in her daughter's home. Susan did what any grandmother would do. She drove over to where the youngsters were. Then she dragged a kayak through the hip-deep floodwaters and brought the children to safety. One happy ending in a story that's been filled with tragedy and devastation. Artificial intelligence could help turn your neighborhood firefighter into a superhero. At least that's the hope of Chris Liu. He's a researcher in Edinburgh, Scotland. When they run into a building, Liu says this new helmet will help smoke eaters rapidly map their surroundings and find people trapped inside.
Yeah, firefighters are heroes. Everyone knows that, right? But what we are doing is not only they're already heroes, we also want them to have this superhero ability. See through smoke, see through darkness, and have this ability to find the effective solutions for the search and rescue.
The technology combines feeds from thermal cameras, radar, and inertial sensors. They're all mounted on a standard issue firefighting helmet. Field trials are underway. No word on when it might be available to your local fire hall. In Bulgaria, they're asking the question, where have all the young people gone? Bulgaria has the dubious distinction of being one of the fastest shrinking nations in the world. This maternity ward is seeing fewer newborns. That's because fewer and fewer babies are being born. Young people are leaving Bulgaria in droves. Corruption, a lack of career prospects, and political instability are driving people away. In the last decade, Bulgaria has lost 1/10 of its population. And what is left is an older demographic. 1/4 of the population is aged 65 years or older. Rapidly, Bulgaria is becoming a nation of ghost towns. In my country, Canada, the receding ice in the Arctic is putting polar bears at risk, and also people. Because the ice in the Hudson Bay melts earlier and comes in later, the bears spend more time on shore. And for people in the northern Manitoba town of Churchill, that presents a danger. It's not unusual for polar bears to wander into this town of 800 looking for food. Their favorite dining spot? The local dump. That's where they can be seen ripping open trash bags, foraging for food. Conservation Officer Ian Van Ness says the town does take precautions. He says they even have a bear patrol.
Typically, we come here in the morning, we do a patrol first thing in the morning before school starts to ensure that the kids are going to be safe walking to school.
As an added precaution, people in Churchill don't lock their cars or homes. That's in case someone needs to find an urgent shelter after an encounter with a polar bear. Alpacas for rent, only $95 an hour in Arizona. Andrea Diaz has 14 of them. Her business is called My Pet Alpaca. She rents out 5 of these creatures. So Andrea, who would want to rent an alpaca?
So we do a lot of birthdays, we do a lot of weddings, we do a lot of restaurants and bars. It's all pretty fun. We do a lot of breweries too. But I think the best part is when we do kids' birthday parties, because you would think it's mostly for the kids. It's actually mostly for the adults. And it's really fun.
Diaz says, they make great pets.
Alpacas as pets are amazing. They're like a non-destructive cat. So they kind of mind their own business. They walk around the house, they munch on their hay, and that's pretty much it. Incidentally,
they are clean animals and can be trained to use a litter box. In Hollywood, getting a facelift is not unusual, and as a matter of fact, even landmarks get a nip and tuck once in a while. The patient this time is the famed Hollywood sign, one of the world's most iconic landmarks. It's coming up on 100 years old, and as it approaches the century mark next year, it needs a little cosmetic work. About 1,500 liters of paint will be applied to the letters to keep them looking young. Ferris Weeb, he's with the Hollywood Sign Trust, says, that sign was never meant to be permanent.
It started as a sign, as a marquee to promote land, hence the name Hollywood Land. And they were promoting homes in the Hollywood area. But the sign morphed into something else because that was the beginning of the movie industry and all this new technology. So the Hollywood sign morphed into the Hollywood that we see, which is the technology, the movie industry, the glamour.
The paint job should be completed by November 1st. I'll be back in 7 days, and in the meantime, I wish you all peace, joy, and happiness in the ensuing week. Thomas I. Likeness, correspondent at large, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Schools in Papua New Guinea joined the nation in its month-long anniversary of independence celebrations. This year, educators say reminding the young people of the cultures that make up the country's identity is of utmost importance. Echo Orteleza Quinola on this week's Oceania at a Glance.
Schools join in the month-long celebration of Papua New Guinea's 47th Independence Day. Students from across different schools perform cultural dances in their traditional costumes. Malolo International School Principal Ruth Nombri encourages the youth to preserve, understand, and keep the culture as part of their lives now and in the future.
It is very hard to understand that in one country you have just over many hundreds of different cultures. And so it is very important that we teach our children to appreciate and to know their culture so they pass this on to the future generation. Influence from other cultures that come in, and it is very strong. It is trying to take away what we know, and so we as a school try very much to make sure that our students understand the cultures and appreciate what it is, because this is the building blocks of our society, and this makes us us. We are different.
Meanwhile, still part of the celebrations, the All Nations Women's Group in Papua New Guinea holds a special get-together. The social organization in Port Moresby advocates international fellowship, goodwill, life and culture of different nationalities. Guest speaker entrepreneur Vani Nades talks about providing internet in rural areas in the country for its citizens to connect to the modern world.
With their school education, we provide education, we provide e-library, and we also provide, access to our children being going around providing solar Wi-Fi, connectivity with the communities in wherever we are.
Echo Hortaleza Quinola, Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
In Australia, the Compact Prints exhibit returns, offering an avenue for artists and enthusiasts to exchange artworks and ideas. Participating artists each submit an edition of 3 identical prints, one for the exhibit, one for the auction, and one for artwork exchange. To tell us more, here's Morgan Goodfellow.
20 years after the Compact Prints was first held here, it's back with a celebration of contemporary print practices, embracing traditional and technological methods.
The exhibit welcomed international artists since 2004 and has continued as a biennial exhibition including national and international tours. Originally conceived and curated by Rebecca Butler, Compact Prints 2022 is a forum for artists to exchange creations and ideas. It also extends help to Umbrella Studio Townsville, home to many well-renowned artists and art exhibitions through its fundraising auction. All prints are available through a silent auction running until the exhibition closes. The program is greatly appreciated and anticipated, and shared widely via printmaking organisations, artist participants, networks, and online.
Auction registration and bidding are available to the public and are encouraged to revisit throughout the exhibition. Compact Prints International Exhibition will be on display till the 2nd of October. Morgan Goodfellow, Townsville, Australia, OceaniaAtAGlance, Eagle News.
Meanwhile, anxiety, depression, and stress in the workplace, if not addressed properly, eventually take a toll on one's overall mental health and wellness. Billions of workdays every year are wasted due to mental health concerns. The World Health Organization and the International Labor Organization offer a strategy to fight this crisis. Here's Jeff Sanidad on this week's Health is Wealth.
The World Health Organization, or WHO, and the International Labor Organization, or ILO, call for concrete actions to tackle mental health concerns in the working populations. According to WHO, an estimated 12 billion workdays are lost annually due to depression and anxiety. These cost the global economy nearly $1 trillion. To address the issue, 2 new publications have been published recently: WHO Guidelines on Mental Health at Work and a derivative WHO and ILO Policy Brief. WHO's Global Guidelines on Mental Health at Work recommend actions to tackle risk to mental health. This includes heavy workloads, negative behaviors, and other factors that create distress at work. WHO says for the first time, it is recommending manager training to help prevent situations where workers fall in distress. In WHO's World Mental Health Report, published in June of this year, it shows that of 1 billion people living with mental disorder in 2019, 15% of working-age adults experience a mental disorder. The health agency says work amplifies wider societal issues that negatively affect mental health. This includes discrimination and inequality. A key complaint of workplace harassment that has negatively impacted mental health includes bullying and psychological violence. This is also known as mobbing. In this day and age, WHO says talking about and revealing mental health remains a taboo in work settings globally. The guidelines recommended better ways to accommodate the needs of workers with mental health conditions, proposed interventions that support the return to work, and for those with severe mental health conditions, provide interventions that facilitate entry to paid employment. WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says these new guidelines can help prevent negative work situations and cultures and offer much needed mental health protection and support for working people. Jeff Sanidad, Washington, D.C. Health is Wealth. Eagle News.
Raising awareness about the deaf community and in celebration of Hispanic heritage, the DeafLatinosYFamilias organization hosts its 2nd annual DeafLatinos Expo. The event connects visitors with hearing and non-hearing businesses and services. It also provides demonstrations centered around Hispanic, Latin, and Indigenous people. In Los Angeles, California, Alan Basileaje on this week's Community Care.
For Deaf Awareness and National Hispanic Heritage Month, DeafLatinosYFamilias hosts its 2nd annual DeafLatinos Expo. There's food, music, and entertainment, as well as opportunities for collaboration and entrepreneurship with deaf-owned businesses and community groups.
A lot of families, because of their status, are just scared of looking for help or asking, and also that pride that some of our Latino families have. You know, we bring resources here to them, and we also partner up and also have hearing individuals or hearing businesses come, so they could also know that there are other people out there.
So I make hand soaps, and that's what we're showcasing today. So we have them for children as well. It's good for your skin. It could make it very glowy and bright. It softens your skin as well. And it, overall helps maintain a less dry complexion and then provide a glow. That's very nice.
It's really special for me and my mom because it's our first business. And I just really want to show people what my mom could do. All of this is just handmade soap. And it's just overwhelming and exciting to see all these wonderful businesses here. And I want to support every single one.
These are our traditional beverages from El Salvador. We have our original cola champan, accompanied with any pupusas, and also our traditional foods, so you can't forget where you come from. We also have a booth at the other end where we bring all the national bags from El Salvador.
Everything here is 100% handmade, and it takes about a full day to make just one bag, depending on the styles, if it's one color, if it's multiple colored, and all of these is embroidered. Same thing with the hats. So it takes like a full day to just make one piece. So when I was looking into it, I really appreciated the artwork, and I really appreciated the determination, because to sit down and actually make one and complete one is it's not that easy.
Clothing accessories proudly displayed vibrant colors, as did the outfits of OceaniaAtAGlance, an Aztec dance group.
Welcome to 25
We're here in the Los Angeles area, and we do the traditions of Mexico, and we try to work with the community whenever possible and bring everybody together. Just have fun, learning about our culture and moving forward with it. It's an honor for us to be part of this community, so anybody who's watching, come out, support. These are our friends, our family, our relatives, we all know somebody from this community, so let's support them.
Most of the communication between organizers was done using sign language. So, except for the occasional rumble of motorcycles, setup for this event was quieter than most. But throughout the day, the significance of all cultures and the importance of deaf awareness were messages that were received loud and clear by everyone. Alan Basoyahe, Los Angeles, California, Eagle News, we live in extraordinary times.
Before we let you go, here's our photo of the week taken by Jessica Bautista. This is Town Neck Beach in Sandwich, Massachusetts on the bay side of Cape Cod. Such a beautiful view of the water. Thank you all for joining us again. If there are any stories or topics you want us to share with you, just comment below. View, like, share our other shows. City Limits with Alan Basileaje. Connected with Dr. David. Take a seat and join us with Anna Cui. Plate Date with Mike Hudson and friends. Plus, Journey. Stories of Filipinos in Canada with Kathleen Cruz. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Eagle News Live. I'm Ralph Coronel. We live in extraordinary times. Happy weekend, everyone.